PlayStation gets criticized a lot, and one of the most like common criticism that I've been hearing pretty much since the PS4 era, but it's been kind of an ongoing thing with PlayStation, and it's that PlayStation games are too realistic. They're not like cartoony or gamey enough, and they're kind of walking simulators, etc. And I feel like these are kind of unwarranted criticisms because I feel like PlayStation games, though they may look really good and look really pretty, aren't realistic in any sense of the imagination. And I don't know what world these people are living in where they think this shit happens in their reality, or they go out their window and they see like flying dragons and stuff, because it ain't really it. But maybe it's just me. So what I kind of want to do today is go through like some of PlayStation's biggest franchises currently, and I kind of just want to go over and see like, hey, are these games realistic or are they not? Hey there, you guys. My name is Christian. If you're new to the channel, consider looking at some of the other videos. Consider subscribing. You might like what you see. If you like this video, just specifically this video, do me a favor and like the video. It does help me out tons. And with that, let's get into this one. Alright, let's start things off with the world of God of War. This is Big Daddy Kratos. PlayStation doesn't really have a mascot, quote unquote, like Mario would be to Nintendo or something, or Sonic would be to Sega. But I guess if there was anything close, it would be Kratos. Now, I'm not gonna sit around and act like people hate this game. Like, I think everyone looking at this game can acknowledge the fact that it is a great game and is great at what it does. Some of the criticisms I hear, though, I feel like are kind of out of left field. So I feel like people who do criticize this game haven't really played this game. So let me introduce you to our main character, Kratos. Kratos is the god of war of the Greek mythology, and if you played the first 3 games, he pretty much goes through on a war slaughter of all the gods of Greek mythology until he essentially has to flee. He ends up going to like the world of Norse mythology with like Vikings and Thor and stuff like that. And that's the setting of this game, where you play as a god and you're out trying to murder other gods. So like, again, I don't know which one of you guys are gods out here and saying, yes, this is my day-to-day, this is a walking simulator for me, but I just don't see it. I don't know you, so maybe you are a god of war. Maybe you're like, yeah, this is too similar to my everyday. Well, his best friend is a talking head that is strapped to his thigh. But I get it, because the graphics look good, because the art direction isn't abstract and it kind of looks like it makes a little sense. But I get it, there's too much human-shaped things that look like humans in this game, and that bothers some people, I guess, for whatever reason. Because this is a game that's supposed to be fantastical, it's supposed to be able to do things we can't do in reality. So let's go on to our next franchise. Alright, so this is the world of Horizon. Now, Horizon takes place in the United States. So I get why some people get confused, because you see some landmarks that maybe you see in reality. So I get that part. But let me tell you where in the United States this takes place. Or more specifically, when this takes place. So in the world of Horizon, the United States has been overrun by machines. And this takes place in like kind of a futuristic time where mankind has fell and kind of resorted back to tribal mentality. And you play as the main character, Aloy, who takes down these machines using weapons like bows and spears and stuff like that. And I mean, if that doesn't like sell you that this isn't a realistic game, even though it looks very pretty and looks very high definition, don't get it confused with the stuff that you see in your everyday. Alright, I see it in your face. You're still not convinced. Let me introduce you to a character you all do know. His name is Spider-Man. Most people can admit that Spider-Man does not exist in reality. Spider-Man is a superhero developed by Marvel Comics, where you play as Peter Parker, who develops the powers of a spider, and you go up and you fight crimes of people like Dr. Octopus, the Green Goblin. You have things like Spidey senses, and you can shoot webs. And yes, he does live a more traditional quote-unquote life in comparison to, like, let's say Aloy or Kratos, because he is a man, he does go to work, and he has a girlfriend, and he has to help his aunt. But aside from that, he's also the Spider-Man. He has to save New York from a bunch of different kind of crazy weirdo freaks. So yeah, I don't really know what you want from me. This is Spider-Man. He looks like a human, but he has powers of an arachnid. He moves kind of strange, and he can swing on webs from building to building and climb walls. I don't know who lives that life, but it ain't me, so I don't know. Okay, maybe you're saying, Christian, that's cheating. Spider-Man is already invented by Marvel. Well, let me introduce you to a superhero developed by a first-party Sony PlayStation team. This is the world of Infamous, where you play as Cole. Cole is the survivor of a freak accident where he develops the power of electricity. Cole lives in kind of a New York inspired city that is like run down, and anarchy has set loose due to like a disease that's been murdering people and is making people go crazy and kind of no longer be supported by government. They're kind of left to fend on their own. And Cole is kind of one of the people gifted with a stronger ability with his electricity powers. So with your powers, you're able to either choose to fight for yourself and your people that you love personally, or try to fight for the greater good. You kind of have that option where you can branch off into different stories, etc., etc. If you guys never played Infamous, definitely check it out. It's in one of my favorite games on the PS3. And yeah, again, I just don't see how Sony games are really that realistic. Alright, let me take things one step further, because I think all these people kind of look like humans and that confuses people. Well, let me bring you to the world of Little Big Planet, where you play as one of my favorite characters on PlayStation. This is Sackboy. Little Big Planet was developed by one of the most creative teams I've ever seen. This is Media Molecule, and they created a very interesting kind of art style with this. Everything is like made out of yarn, and you can kind of like create your own tools, and you can kind of create your own ways to platform. It's a very interesting game that takes place in this kind of storybook adventure. And apart from that, you get to like create your own levels and upload them to a community for tons of people to play, kind of similar to like a Mario Maker or something. But yeah, this is Sackboy. It is definitely one of the most cartoony games I've ever seen on PlayStation, and it is a really fun game. If you never played it, I recommend going back and playing Little Big Planet 3, because it still surprisingly has a community of developers, and it is a really good game. I sometimes actually been hopping back into it, and I'm having a good time. And maybe you're saying, okay, Sony doesn't really promote Little Big Planet the same way it promotes God of War or Horizon. Maybe you're right. Let me introduce you to Astro's Playroom. This is a game that comes for free for everyone who've already bought a PS5. It's already downloaded in the game, and this is one of the most creative and interactive 3D platformers I've ever played. It takes full advantage of the PlayStation 5 controller, and it is just an amazing game that plays homage to everything that PlayStation has built since the PlayStation 1 to PS5, and it is just, again, it's an amazing game. I can't stress out how creative it is, and I feel like a lot of people like to kind of not consider this in the whole PlayStation conversation when we're talking about realistic games. But let me tell you, this is far from realistic. Again, this feels more like a Nintendo game developed for PlayStation, and it is just amazing. I definitely recommend, if you have a PS5 and you haven't actually played Astro's Playroom, give it a shot. It is really fun. And I feel like whenever people kind of criticize for PlayStation for being like too realistic, one franchise that always gets left out is Ratchet and Clank. Ratchet and Clank has had long ties with PlayStation dating back consoles ago. It has survived all this many years because it is so creative and so different from what you would find on PlayStation. I think from the characters being like so silly and over the top. The main bad guy's name is Dr. Nefarious, and he's just always up to some nefarious deed. They're always doing something crazy with this franchise, and I just love it for it. It definitely has this kind of Saturday cartoon energy that kind of just feels so like early 2000s, and it always brings me back to those times with its jokes that sometimes don't really land, or they're kind of over the top characters. Again, I just think this game is underrated when people like to talk about like PlayStation exclusives or PlayStation style games. This is a game that definitely showcases the diversity in PlayStation's portfolio. I feel like I made my point that PlayStation games aren't really realistic or necessarily walking simulators, and they do have diversity within their portfolio. So again, I just want that kind of criticism to stop. It's fine if you don't like PlayStation. It's fine if you don't like the games on PlayStation. I just feel like if you're gonna lobby criticisms at it, hit them in places that actually make sense to criticize. Don't criticize them for things that don't make sense. And if you really do think that these games look realistic, I think you're kind of confusing it for like cinematic or photorealistic. And again, photorealistic doesn't necessarily mean real or like based on actual things. It just means that they reached a level of high fidelity that looks like it could kind of like look real, but it doesn't mean that the games themselves are based on reality. Again, they've proven this time and time again with the diversity. My question is for people who are like, oh my god, these games just look too bland or look too real or whatever. What do you think you should do with this hardware? Like, it is some of the strongest hardware in home consoles currently. You think they're gonna spend the time to make a 1080p game? Why? They have the capabilities to push it to 4K and make these things look realistic. That doesn't mean they only make photorealistic games as shown by like Little Big Planet and Astro's Playroom and Ratchet and Clank. These games are colorful and vibrant and playful and definitely harness that energy of like Saturday morning cartoons or even things that are just more like I would say Nintendo-y, because I think that's the only way people get it is when you reference things like Nintendo as like fun, but PlayStation can be fun too. And yeah, sometimes they want to make things that are darker and gritty like Ghost of Tsushima, but it doesn't mean all their games are going to look like that or are going to be that photorealistic. It just means they have the capability and they should always reach for the stars with these. And I hope I didn't come off like too fanboy-y. I do love PlayStation, but it doesn't mean I don't like other consoles or anything. I just feel like, again, if you're going to criticize a game for things, make sure that they're kind of more warranted. Like, for example, if you're going to insult God of War, you can say things like, he doesn't know how to jump anymore in these games, or it relies a little too heavily on the cinematics to carry the game. Those things I feel like are warranted criticisms. I just feel like people don't really know what their problem with these games are, or they haven't actually played these games to understand why these games are so great and where their shortcomings are. So again, if you don't like the games, that's fine. You don't know how to play them. I just feel like don't talk crap about them. You play your games, we'll play our games. That's kind of the way I see it. Anyways, those are all my final thoughts. Let me know down below what your guys' final thoughts are. Is PlayStation too realistic games? Like, I don't know. I'll see you guys in the next video.